don't make compromises. If you make a decision, you feel like you're compromising at times. Like you're going to go home and you're going to look back and be like, I compromised or I gave some of myself away in order to make everyone else comfortable with the decision. If you are a 10-year-old business that's been around or been founded in the past 15 years, you have to be willing to burn the boats. Got to do things differently on culture, driving innovation. I don't think all of these businesses have all the time in the world. Like we play in the CX, CS market, like one of the biggest markets that's going to be disrupted by AI. We have to recognize that we have to do things differently and urgently. When I see something and I want to do it, I literally am like, I wonder how hard it is. I am curious to know what that experience is like. I'm not afraid of the experience. I'm not afraid of the challenges. You got to be committed. You got to like the grind.
Welcome to Grit. I'm Joubin, partner at Kleiner Perkins, a show where we go beyond the highlight reel and explore the personal and professional challenges of building history-making companies. Today on the show, we're joined once again by my friend Dan O'Connell, now the CEO of Front. Dan joined Grit several years ago, and since then, we've had an amazing relationship and friendship. I wanted Dan back on the show because he always says it how it is, and I find that a breath of fresh air these days. Enjoy the episode. So last time we talked, we were not friends. Yeah. So pretty cool that like over the last few years, like we've become friends. You were the CRO of Dialpad, now the CEO of Front. The world has, like I said, changed a lot since then. Yeah. Like we've talked a lot about a lot of things in private. One of the things that I was thinking about that you just reminded me of on the UX front was like, you see companies like OpenAI, whether they're right or wrong, they're really ambitious. Yeah, like,
Crazy ambitious.
They're insanely ambitious. Yeah. And, you know, I don't know, does it even feel silly for you to be like, yeah, we should like upgrade this like front end by 5%? Like, is the cognitive dissonance worse than what it ever was? Because you're like, all right, these companies are going for it.
Like any business, I was just at this CEO conference last week and we were talking all about this with, and they had some investors and some other folks that were bankers that were in the room. If you are a 10-year-old business that's been around or been founded in the past 15 years, like you're in an existential crisis around your identity.
Which is you.
Which is us, for sure. I think it's really exciting, but you have to be willing to burn the boats in terms of got to do things differently on culture, driving innovation. I don't think all of these businesses have all the time in the world, especially in, I would say, like very specific markets. Like we play in the CX, CS market, like support market. You talk about one of the biggest markets that's going to be disrupted or is being disrupted by AI, perfect application, perfect positioning of value that you can get. We have to recognize that we have to do things differently and urgently.
Yeah.
And so it's been really interesting to get to join a business and to not be the founder, as I said, it's a 10-year-old business and figure out the transformation. Yeah. But that pressure is real.
So like I've explored this with like Yamini at HubSpot and with Howie at Airtable, with like great SaaS companies. Yeah. I'll put Front, like great 10 to 15-year-old SaaS companies. Yeah. Okay. And they all say the same thing. They're like, Joubin, like it is urgent, right? But we are now, let's just say 2 years into LLMs. Yep. 2 years. And the urgency so far has shown up as like incremental, if you will. Like it has not been a complete rewrite of your entire stack, which threatens your existing customer base, which threatens the type of employee that you have today that might need to be refactored for the future, all these things, right? And the like real tension is probably, you tell me, is like, well, yeah, you have like over 100 million of ARR that like people are using, you know, yeah. Like you have renewal contracts that are coming up. They're like probably going to expand. You know?
Well, all of this tension exists there, right? Like you can't just go to an entire employee base and say, I guess you can, and just say, look, like overnight, we're going to turn over everybody that doesn't believe this or take these actions, right? Like you have distribution and scale and real customers and real revenue. And so I think the impetus is like, look, like that's a very real opportunity. We have distribution, we have scale. There's some argument that that's an advantage. It should be easier for us to go and do some things. right? Sell some add-ons too, whatever it might be, that push the innovation. But there is the challenge of like, look, we have tech debt that we probably need to work through. And we've got to go convince Joubin to use these tools, right? That maybe Joubin doesn't believe in or is a skeptic, right? And so we've got to go through this change management communication. But I think the urgency comes from like the top and the leadership to be like, we have to change the way. And we don't have all of the time in the world, not meaning like the business fails, but just like the market opportunity goes away, because you can go and see, the startups that are 996, right? Or working hard or pushing innovation or using tools that people don't know about, right? Whatever it might be, like that tension exists. But I think it stems at the leadership. Like, is the leadership aligned? Are they willing to push on the culture? How are they communicating like that message and that urgency to the employee base?
Mm-hmm. And then,
but it's hard. It's hard.
And then on the leadership question, like you mentioned it, like the founder versus CEO. I will say, like in our private conversations, it does sound like you have one of the better setups as far as it goes, of like having a founder that is still helpful exactly when you want it to be helpful, but not overbearing in a way that, can get in the way of like many of these transitions have. Like, I actually do think, I'm not just saying this, I actually do think you have a pretty good setup.
Yeah, I would agree.
But like all that being said, like, do you have the moral authority to be able to, do you have the courage, like to really be able to, like, will the board take bullets for Dan if he's like, we are going to burn the boats? And by the way, can I just like maybe qualify this a little bit more?
Go for it.
Like the people that I've also had these conversations with, like that are at the helms of these SaaS companies, they're still founders and it's still hard.
Yeah.
Like they still haven't done it.
Yeah.
In earnest.
Yeah. Well, I think like the courage is a good one. Matilda and I talk, like, I think I have a perfect setup, right? You've got a founder still in the business. It's our CTO, who's a technological savant. Matilda, who is the founder and CEO. Like, Matilda and I catch up on a weekly basis, but trusts me wholeheartedly and always tells me, like, make decisions that are going to energize yourself. She constantly tells me that. Our lead investors from Sequoia, Brian Schreier, who's exceptional. Brian and Matilda, and that's the board, like the four of us, the two founders, Brian, myself.
It's actually a pretty small board.
It is a small board.
I actually didn't know that.
Really small. Separate conversation for of what do we want to do with that, right? How do you evolve it? These are very real conversations like we have. Like, I'm speaking with Brian tomorrow of like, there's some bets we want to make next year. I don't think we have all of the time to shake things up and to be more aggressive. And there's going to be times where like metrics might be imperfect or not exactly what you want. But I look at the market opportunity and like, things aren't slowing down. We sit in a healthy position in terms of capital. I think we've got product momentum. I've turned over the entire executive team over the past 18 months. Like, we got amazing executive team that I trust. Revenue is growing. As I said, product momentum. I'm like, I want us to be more aggressive and lean into it, because I don't see the world slowing down. And either we're that old ship or viewed as the legacy in the old guard, and you kind of like befuddle your way through it. I don't know how you get to be a category leader. And we know that category leaders have obviously like outsized returns for everybody, momentum, like you name it. And this market is probably one of the biggest markets that's going through this complete shuffling of the board. And we want to be part of it. It means we got to take some risks. So you talk about courage, for sure. Courage, I think that's what like gets people excited and energized, but you got to be willing to like, are you willing to trade off 30% of your revenue or 40% of revenue to capture it? Like, those are the very real conversations. We collectively as a leadership team and as a unit with the board and the company are having, which is like, what do we want to do?
And can I like, why, like, let me go into that decision a little bit more. If you have to, why would you have, like, why, maybe not just you, everybody.
Sure.
Why do you have to give up, let's just say, half of your revenue? Like, what is the actual trade-off, or a third of your revenue? What is the sacrifice that you have to make in order to, why can't you do both?
Yeah, ours might be, and I'm making this like to befuddle, like I'm making up that number, right, on those pieces.
Even 10%,
but
doesn't matter.
Yeah. So let's take a step back for our business. Like, our business started 10 years ago. We were an email productivity tool. I would argue when you're an email productivity tool, like you lack a really clear ICP and buyer. You might be selling to the CIO one day. You might be selling to somebody in HR the next day that's using you for whatever reason. You might be selling to go-to-market teams. So when I look at our customer base, like, look, we have very different. Our ICP today is B2B support, customer success, account management. Those are the teams we want to sell to. We have ICP within our customer base that is old ICP. They're not the buyers we would have today. So that's the hard part, which is like, look, how do we go and understand what that opportunity is? Can we sell those people? Can we get to the right people? Are we willing to work with them? What's the percentage revenue that we might be giving up if we don't? These are all the very real questions and inertia of, say, a 10-year-old business that has gone through, some changes in positioning and evolution. That's where the friction and inertia, I think, shows up.
When Mathilde tells you to make decisions that give you energy, is that how you said it?
That's how I said it.
What does that mean?
Yeah, for me, like, don't sacrifice. And I was listening to really nice podcast by Owen from Intercom the other day. He said something I was like, I'll bring this back to you, which is like, if you make a decision, you feel like you're compromising at times. Like, you're going to go home and you're going to look back and be like, I compromised, or I gave some of myself away in order to make everyone else comfortable with the decision. And like, that happens constantly again. And like, before you know it, kind of like the thing that you wanted to build is I don't know, hopefully you're following.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the thing that, it's like death by 1,000 compromises.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think like Mathilde's pushed me for that, which is like, her and I have, I think we see the world very similarly, but we have different styles. How we view culture within a business, I would argue, is probably different. I wasn't there up front, right? Prior to me, obviously prior to me coming in. But I think those are the things which she's like, don't make compromises. Don't compromise on the leadership decisions, whether it's changes you want to make on structure, whether it's the bets you want to go and make. Like, she wants to fully make sure, like, I feel empowered to go make the best decisions and the ones that are going to give me energy. And she trusts me to make those decisions. And I love that. And I think that's so true because, again, I look at little things. There are times like I make a decision, I'm like, feel like I'm giving in to get something across the board, right? Or to make somebody more comfortable with it. And then again, death by 1,000 cuts of like, go home, compromise.
Yeah, but on those little ones, if it's a small give, like, don't you think the tension is actually like, and I've been going through something similarly where it's like, all right, this is not a big deal.
Yeah.
This is not a big deal. But like, the big deal to me is like, well, like, I have a core belief around this decision, around like the identity of merit and the culture that I want to stand for. And so this is something very small and extremely innocuous relative to like that core belief that I have. And I've spent like 5 days spinning around this thing that like is probably wasted energy that I absolutely should have just like made the decision and moved on because it doesn't really matter except for that one thing.
Yeah, but
that like gnaws at me. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, but these things, like, you think they're small, I think they're small. But suddenly when you're talking to a culture, and are setting an example for, we have 300 other frontiers and leaders, those little decisions they might be little to you, they might be big to somebody else, right? We're trying to move fast on talent. There are times I will like push on like, look, this is your person, this is your hire, make the hire. Have them meet with a couple people. You don't need to put them through 8 people and have them present. Like, we don't have the time, right? Again, we don't have the time. I'm not saying make a bad decision. I'm not saying just trust your gut on something, but I'm like, if you've worked with somebody, have them come and meet with a couple people, like, cut the cadence down. We got to find some places to cut corners. That doesn't mean sacrifice quality. But what somebody might hear in that is like, now I'm not part of the process. Does my voice matter? Right? Do I have a seat at the table? And so like, even little decisions I think should be pretty easy in the pressure of like, hey, move faster. We got to reinvent ourselves. We got to get the right talent on the table to do that. This is where I think there's like that natural friction that shows up, is somebody is going to say like, I'm not part of the process. My voice doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think that's the real complexities of like, be like the CEO role is like every decision you make touches somebody. And then they want to have the context and understanding of it.
So you mentioned Owen. Like, I actually think it's a fascinating case study that I would love your perspective on.
Yeah.
Okay. Because they're in a adjacent space.
Yeah, direct competitor.
Direct competitor.
Yeah,
At Intercom.
I was like, we don't need to push it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
it's like,
yeah,
I'm like direct competitor.
All right, that was a dance around
Yeah.
it. And you also have new entrants in the space.
For sure.
Sierra and
Yeah.
Decagon, and they're all growing like crazy.
Yeah.
And that's the hot new shiny toy.
Yeah.
Okay. And probably Intercom is one of the like very few examples I can count that have actually made the transformation.
Yeah.
In a pretty good way relative to most. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say outstanding. I think it's been a masterclass in branding.
The thing is, it is like the thing that Owen had to come back to the company. He left the company.
Yep.
The founder had to return. He had to make some really big hiring moves.
Yep.
Like he brought on Archana or whatever. Like things that are not easy to do.
Yeah.
That you have to have deep conviction in, you know? And then he rebranded the company. He basically bifurcated the company into like two different things. One, which is the core, and the other. And like probably like 50 other things that we don't see or know.
Yep.
That are all probably like relatively miserable to do. Let's be honest. Like they're probably really sucky decisions.
For sure.
And they probably like divide the organization like crazy.
Yeah. I think you can see it. He talks about it, right? I mean, you can see it. Glassdoor, Glassdoor is one way to look at stuff.
Yeah.
You don't get that.
But people are pissed.
But he would say that too, right? But I think that's the thing with like bold, hard decisions, right? It's like you have to reinvent yourself. And I think these are those moments. I'm like, what's your outcome at the end of the day though, right? You're a low teens growing or single digits business. Maybe you're break even, maybe not. I don't know how much revenue. I'm just picking. Let's just pick, not necessarily on them. Pick a business in that space. A couple $100 million in revenue, and you're like, well, it's $600 million to probably be a public business. You got to be growing faster. You have to like. What is the other alternative?
Well, this is assuming that the end game is to go public.
Yes, but I would argue that you're trying to build, much like all of us. You want to build as fast growing, profitable business as possible.
Yep.
And control your debt.
Give
It's not
yourself
rocket science,
optionality.
right? So you're like optionality, right? So I would be like, regardless of whether that's it, is you're like, look, there is a complete shuffling of the deck that's there. These are those moments where I look at Salesforce and I'm like, I think somebody at this conference last week, a VC said, look, I believe that Salesforce doesn't need to exist or shouldn't exist.
Yep.
And I was like, these are probably those moments where there's a very real shuffling of the deck that's happening here. Mm-hmm. And so that requires you to be bold and make at times brash but rational decisions.
Yeah, I mean, the reshuffling reminds me a lot of like, previous to KP.
I just don't know the alternative. I think that's where I have I have like a hard time of like, even for us, where I'm like, hey, we want to lean in and make some bigger bets. Like, I just don't know what the alternative is. Like, you play it safe. You played sports. I played sports.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it on fields. Like, when somebody's playing not to lose as opposed to playing to win.
Yeah. But the playing to win has much bigger, like there is optionality because the playing to win means there's a very real chance that like it's a full loss. Like you've abandoned your customers. You know what, I'm being dramatic.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But you know what I mean. Like, going for it also has a high opportunity cost relative to incremental.
Yeah, but I think a lot of these, right, like the businesses we're talking about, I don't think the downside is as. I know you're like, these are dramatic points we're making. I don't think the downside is that bad. Right. So your downside is like you're overly ambitious on the bet. You burn through more capital than you would like. You haven't put the business probably in a place that is so catastrophic it can't return or get an alternative outcome. Right. Or have time to navigate that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. That if you're like, look, like we're at a business that has 7 months of runway, I would be like, well, then you're really burning the boats and going for it. But at that point, you probably have no alternatives. I think a lot of these businesses are like, look, they probably have capital. They can take some bigger, bolder bets. They need to have conviction. You got to have the right people. You got to have the right vision, like all of those pieces there to lean in. And if there's not some trajectory that's inflected over in the near term, right, then you're probably going to course correct and run at this differently.
you had an amazing run at Dialpad. You got acquired in. You were one of the co-founders and the CEO of the company that you were acquired into. Then you were like, basically, I don't know, you had all these crazy fancy titles, but like by the end, you were like, whatever, they're like president of Dialpad. Okay. And you took it from like 3 to a couple $100 million of ARR. It was great, good run, still a great company.
Yeah.
And at that point, like it was clear that you wanted to do something next.
Yeah.
Like, it was time. And I remember you and I would sit down for lunch or dinner, and I was like, dude, there's some insane companies that need like a president, you know?
Yeah.
And they're ripping. Like they are on fire. They are in the eye of the AI hurricane right now. And my observed experience was that I'd say like, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, so tell me what I'm
You're
wrong.
good. You're good.
Tell me what I'm wrong.
One, I was never president of Dialpad.
Okay, whatever. It doesn't matter. You were like owning a bunch of the scope, okay? And you would go talk to one of these good companies, and then every time you would kind of back into, I think I want to be the CEO. And then you go talk to another one, and it was almost like you testing yourself to see like, do I have to be the CEO or not? And now, like, obviously you made that decision.
Yeah.
First of all, am I right or wrong?
You're right.
Okay.
And I don't regret my decision.
Okay.
There's not a moment in time. You teed me up with some fantastic. Trust me. I look back and I'm like, if I made a different decision. I do not regret there's not a decision I have made in my career, fortunately, that I look back and regret. This was like another one that I am now 19 months into this journey, and it's been like a gift, way harder than I thought.
Why?
I think it's infinitely easier to start and build a business than it is to take over for a business, for a CEO. I think this one's unique. I think you have like amazing founders. One of the founders that in which has like an aura and a culture around her. And so that's hard I am compared, whether I like it or not, I am compared every day to that person, right? Even employees that have been there long tenured. That's hard. You're stepping in somebody else's footsteps and legacy on the pieces. I think you have natural business inertia that shows up. And so those are things of like really fast run up. You have a plateau that you've got to push through. That means that we have to change the way everything has to change. Culture, perspective of the market, our ICP changed, the leaders changed. I thought it was going to be easier to come in and not have as much kind of inertia that's there in a business that's 10 years old. Like that has been the surprising piece to me.
Yeah.
It's just taken more work. Not like you can't get there. So I'm just like, I thought it would be easier at times. Trying to think the other things that have like surprised me. It all comes down to like the leadership, the C-suite. And I've turned over 18 months, all of our C-suite except for one member. I think that was, I get it. People want to have like their team on the field. And I think you're trying to match experiences within the system that you have and the culture that you have. But that was hard. That takes time. Yep. But now I look at it, I'm like 18 months and I got like the team that I want. I love our team. Yeah. But that's been hard. That's been harder. It's taken more time than I thought, than I would have liked.
But why? If you were really honestly introspecting on why you wanted to be the CEO, knowing what it means to be the founder and CEO versus a CEO versus the CRO of a SIT company or whatever, like, do you think it was an ego thing? Like, do you think it was a control thing? Do you think it was a money thing? These are all things that people don't feel generally comfortable talking about.
I'm glad that you brought me here. I'm glad our friendship is like, let me ask Dan. I think it's all, honest. I know you'll be honest. I think it's all those things. I think this was like a perfect opportunity of like legitimately, this was space I loved. Yeah. And like you and I have talked about this, where I'm like, the place I really like to build software is for go-to-market teams, whether that's on the sales side, on the service side, support side. So I was like, backed by best investors, tier one firm backs it. didn't need capital. So you're like not going in and are like, you got 7 months to figure this out, right? Or whatever it might be. And so it's the space, right size, 75 million in ARR at the time. 250 odd employees, like just a really nice site based in San Francisco. I hit every I went home and like wrote down this checkbox and I was chatting with Anne. And she's like, there's no reason why you shouldn't take this. This is like my life partner telling me that, right? Like on this. And I felt the same. And then to your point, like the other things, for sure, control. Like I like being like, I like being in control. It sounds like it has such a bad connotation to it when people say it. Like I trust my judgment. I like to take risks. I'm like a sense of, I'm like an eternal optimist.
Yeah, you want to better yourself.
I like to think that I'm like self-aware and humble enough to admit mistakes. I think I can sell a good vision. I know what good talent looks like. And I'm like, this is such a good shot. Like, why would I not do this? And it seems to have a head start because we have 10 years, because we have all these customers, because that to me didn't seem like debt. It seemed like an advantage, but you got to be willing to press on the advantage and play offense. And I needed the right team to play offense. And I was like, I think I can get the right team on the field.
Yeah.
In the window that we need to move. And I view this market as like, this is a 12 to 18 month market in terms of kind of like, how do you go maximize opportunity? Control, ego for sure. Yes. Compensation, equity for sure. Right. And maybe that's a little bit more guaranteed. I don't think of it that way, but I'm like, you're at scale. Yeah. It started. So as I said, like, but nothing's guaranteed. There's nothing guaranteed.
For sure. And is that why, like, I guess in our conversations, there wasn't that much of like, I think I want to start from square one. Like, I think I want to build from the ground up.
Yeah.
Like that, like maybe I'm misremembering, but there wasn't too much of like, Joubin, I have to be the founder.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't that much of that in our conversation.
I think that gets in like, I'm the non-technical founder, right?
Yeah.
So I feel you always need a really technical counterparty.
Yeah.
I hope that I'm the CEO for a long time at Front. I think there's a multi-billion-dollar revenue business that's here. I would like to, at some point in my career, go and start something from scratch. And I think like that itch will be there, but like that itch, I think we have such a fantastic opportunity and hits everything I'm looking for. I'm like, I want to go execute on this.
Was Talk IQ from scratch?
I joined when it was 5 people.
Okay. And do you feel like,
are
you still like, do you still feel like, you know what? Damn it. I have never actually done it.
A little bit. It's also funny to look like we went through this acquisition. We were talking about 11 Labs in Mati, and I had met him way back in 2016. We were both building speech recognition, real-time speech rec engines, like way back. Like it's so funny. It'd be like a decade ago.
Like iPhone 12.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, if we had not gone through that acquisition, like what would have our, where would I like what would now things look like?
Right.
But yeah, even there, like, I think there will always be this itch in me that is like, I just want to do it my way from the start.
Yep.
From the very start. My like I hate, my culture, my way, my investor, like you name it. I think that's going to be there.
Yep.
And I think when we first talked, I speaking about like my dad passing and like this profound impact on me of like so immersed in tech. I thought I would like miss, my dad was CEO. I lost him when I was 32. And I was like picturing myself in my deathbed and being like, this would be such a bummer if I never run something. And I think the same, that I'm like, if I don't start something from scratch, I think I'll like regret that piece.
Yeah.
Really regret it.
And when your life, like when you go to your partner and you go through the like checklist, is there a part of you that is like, okay, like how does our life work together? Like, meaning I believe that your level of responsibility and stress and like all the things has probably meaningfully ramped up.
Yeah.
From Dialpad to here, just by the nature of the job.
Yeah. Then we introduced, we have our newborn that showed up. And I'm like, yeah, so you're ramping up stress in all sorts of ways.
And I don't know, like, is that like, she knows you. She knows like this story about your, by the way, like that, I still get messages about that story that you told to this day about how much it moved people. But she knows the like chip on your shoulder that you have. She knows it. And so like, is there even a conversation when it's like, hey, I'm gonna it's like, I gotta go do this. Cause like, what is the bizarro world like inverse response to that? It's like, no.
No, I don't know. I mean, the nice part is Anne is in architecture and interior design worlds. And so not having a partner for me that I go home and then talk about LLMs and scaling GPU, go home and be like, oh, everyone cares about cogs again. Whatever it might be. I think like there is such a unique balance in our relationship of like, she truly is like the opposite of me. I will be like the last person to leave a party. I like love being in the party, but then when I hit my limit, I'm like, I need to go. And we'll be there forever. And I think that shows up if like that counterbalance. And I think that's really nice. And I think she knows that. And it's like, look, like you want to have these intense experience. I like intense experiences, whether it's like athletic endurance to like work. She knows that's like who I am. And so trying to like tell me no on that is probably a recipe for disaster of just like, I'm just not going to be myself. And so I think it's so important for people to find partners that you can have that type of relationship with and trust. And I'm not going to make a reckless decision for our family, on those pieces. But I think it's been really nice to see like how much she's supportive of it. And I think it's just because she's a counterbalance.
If you're not having intense experiences, why aren't you yourself?
I really like hard things. I think a lot of people say they like hard things. Legitimately people, I just want to know, I like don't have an answer to, I've done a number of Ironman, like full Ironmans. I've done 10-mile swim. I've done 50-mile run. First time I wanted to do split boarding for backcountry skiing was like to go up Mount Yoti, which is like in Niseko, Japan. Like it's not a safe mountain.
You look good. That's a byproduct of all of it. You look good.
But the point I say that is like when I see something I want to do it, I literally am like, I wonder how hard it is. And it's not about reckless or being unsafe or anything like that. That is just in me. And I think it goes back to like the building businesses wanting to be the CEO. It's just like, I'm just curious. I am curious to know what that experience is like. I'm not afraid of the experience. I'm not afraid of the challenges. I'm not afraid of the endurance around it, whatever it might be, the stresses that can show up. Trust myself. And I'm like, I want to know what that is like. I don't know how that is. I don't know how it's wired in people or not. But I like the people and connect with the people that like hard things, like really hard things. Mm-hmm. And I think at times people say they like the work and the grind and the grit. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, some people can't even commit to going to the gym a couple of days. Like it's great. You got to be committed. You got to like the grind. You got to like the endurance of it. You got to like the ups and downs. I don't know. It's just there.
And do you feel like have you reached a limit to a hard thing? Like, have you done something where you're like, I probably shouldn't have done that thing?
No.
Never.
Never.
What about training for the hard thing?
Time is hard. The one physical, like as I said, I don't know, do we want to talk about physical?
Sure, whatever you want. No agenda.
The one thing I really want to do is a 100-mile trail run. Finding time
to
100-mile trail run.
Okay.
That finding time to do that is really difficult, especially with a newborn and responsibilities at home.
100-mile trail run?
It's take you probably 24 to 30 hours. 30 hours, dude, 24 would be ridiculous. Like there's probably top pros. 30 hours if you're okay. Finding time to do that, I don't know. And then what I worry about for myself is like, that's there. That is a thought that's in my head. I'm 45. My life doesn't seem like it's going to be isn't going to be getting easier. Definitely not going to be getting healthier, right? On these pieces. But those are things that are in my head. I'm like, I don't know how to tackle that goal.
And if you don't,
I go back to the deathbed conversation that I'm like, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to have like these parsing thoughts, maybe not, and be like,
yeah,
that's a bummer. But I think that's probably a
Like-
fleeting thought that people have. Like, what are all the things that I
Yeah.
didn't get to do?
but like
And
you
why
think on your deathbed, one of the fleeting thoughts is like, I should have done the 100-mile
I have
trail run.
no idea what people, probably not,
Yeah.
but I have no idea what people think, right? Meaning like when you're there.
What can I like?
I know I go, I'm not to bring this back to my dad, but like my dad was sick for 10 years. There were probably a 2-year period where we went to the emergency room a multiple number of times. So it's not as if there's like this one thought that he's going to have, I'm like, there was a 2-year window that I bet he had a whole host of thoughts around things he did or did not achieve or experiences he wanted to have. And so I just think like that's probably true. And I those are just things I'm just like, yeah, these are like these experiences. I don't know why I'm hung on that. I just go back. I think I'm capable. I'm curious now how hard it is.
Yeah. You don't have to answer this, but one of the experiences that you waited to have later in life is a kid.
Oh yeah.
And it's interesting to hear you say like all of the, I'd say you fill the boxes of unique life experiences quite well, but the like traditional life experiences, you've punted on. Like you've waited.
Yeah.
You've waited.
Yeah.
Like what gives there,
oh man. Well, I went through a divorce. I lost my dad and my marriage in roughly like the same year. And then also joined Talk IQ. Like you talk about like 3 major life changes, like new job, CEO for the first time, lost my dad, lost my marriage, like in the same year. Brutal. Like I would be like just brutal. So for me, that was like a reset of like, I always thought I would be a young dad growing up. I literally thought I love kids. And I always thought I would be like 25 and 27 having a kid. And I look back, I'm like, oh my God, 25 for the people that have young kids, I'm like incredible. It's so hard. And then there was this moment where I was wanting kids, but Ann and I had been together for 10 years. We were getting older. We had started to look at different ways to have kids. And then we tried and magically just naturally happened. And it's been incredible, like amazing. But some of it was just planning life experiences, prioritization. I never feel I'm doing this the wrong way. There's no right or wrong way for it. I actually think it's been amazing to be like, have a stable career, and to do this at 45. The thing that I usually joke with my friends about is like, oh, by the time they go to college, if they're still college, I'll be pulling Social Security. Like I do think like, I'm going to be 62 or so when they graduate high school,
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, it's different. But it's been amazing.
Do you regret anything? Like you speak as if everything was
partly storytelling, right?
But you don't think everything is like predestined.
Ooh.
Because the way that you talk is very much like things were meant to be as they have played out.
I do think that things happen for reasons. I do. Do I regret things? I for sure regret that breakdown of my first marriage. Right? Sure. I look at like the branch that happened from that. And I got to be a CEO for the first time. I probably wouldn't have been had I stayed. I wouldn't have met Anne if I'd never met Anne. I wouldn't have our dog Panda, who I love. I would definitely not have Riley, who is 3 months and amazing. And I think of that, of just like, man, that was a bummer experience that happened that I went through and opened up this whole new universe of like who I am now. And I would be like, I would take this universe all day.
Yeah. How was paternity leave?
Everyone asked me that.
Do they?
Because
they know that you're psychotic. They know you're psychotic.
I took 10 days and I sent a note. I sent a note to our frontiers and I was like, do not use me as the example of fraternity leave. These are just like, I'd say the funny part is like we had hired a CRO and a CMO and they were just starting in a CPO. And so I was like, look, like I cannot just, I don't know what even a reasonable amount of time for a CEO is to take off. Like we just didn't, I think if all of the executive team was settled, I probably would have approached it slightly differently. It was the fact that we had 3 new people in major roles and I couldn't just say, hey, I'll be back in a few months. You know, I think they would have been fine. They're all exceptional people and our CFO is incredible. She would have got things in order with them. But no. And so I took 10 days. I'll probably take a little bit more time, a couple more months, but hard.
Has your schedule changed?
Yes.
Do you like slightly kind of somewhat resent it because you've had your own schedule forever?
Yes.
Like
you are
a workout freak. It's true.
I know. Yeah. It's just new routines.
What do you have to do?
Get up earlier.
How early?
Up at 5:30.
Okay. In the gym in the morning?
No, I'm trying to find routine at the gym. The one play, and this is hard for me. The one thing that is off right now is the gym is like a stable gym routine, which for me is like a stress reliever.
For sure.
And so that is hard because I'm up in the morning doing the morning feed, spending time with Riley. Yeah, I'm getting our dog situated. I got to get him out of the house. I got to then get to work. Like it's hard. And then there's very real, I have dad stress of like, Anne's on leave. She works at Gensler. She's got like they've got an incredible maternity leave policy. And, but I have that stress of like, oh crap, like it's a lot to take. I didn't realize like it's real work being at home with a baby. And I have that stress that if I'm not home, like I want to be there. I want to be helping out. And so that means like when I get off work, as much as I want to go to the gym and hang out with Joubin and do a lift, I'm like, I can't do that. Not that I can't, not that she would have an issue with it. Just like I want to be home.
And what's crazy to think is like, you have help. I mean, like you can afford help. Like
we have some help. Yes.
You can afford help. And that's what's crazy is like, you still have that.
Yeah, but that stress still shows up.
That's what I mean. Like you still have that guilt and stress. Do you think it's guilt or stress?
I think it's guilt.
Yeah, it's
guilt. I think it's guilt. You know, but like people will make comments to you. And I think that's hard for me. Like
you're not being enough of a dad?
Yeah. Somebody actually made a comment to me. I said we were out to dinner. I think I was out to dinner with Riley and 2 of my buddies. And there were 2 women sitting next to us and overheard us talking. And one of them made a comment to me. It was like, "Oh, make sure you're at home." And I'm like, I can't. I'm like, oh my god, like I for sure want to be home. Like I'm not outsourcing my dad care.
Right.
But I think that's like a real thing that maybe shows up for folks, right? As much as you're like, hey, we can afford help. We're in a fortunate position that you also then feel judged if you do. Judged if I took 10 days off as opposed to taking 3 months off. Again, like trying to balance, this all gets into the relationship dynamics and community, that's hard. And I feel like stressed out and anxious on that for sure.
Yeah.
Because the last thing I want to do is come across as a person that's like outsourcing the help as opposed to like being there, because.
Yeah. But maybe it's even more frustrating because probably the main person's judgment besides yourself that really matters is your partner.
Yeah, and Anne's like, Anne was always like, you're doing a great job. Like, I'm like, you really think I'm doing a good job?
That's what I mean. Like, if you're situated there, like, it's probably pretty annoying to be like, I care about a lot of other people's opinions that I've never even met or don't care about at all. And the people whose opinions I care most about.
I think you naturally want to know that you're doing like a good job. Like everyone's looking for the positive reinforcement, be like, you're doing a good job, right? Like you have the right approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I think it's more anxious.
Would you have another one?
Ooh, that's a good question. My pause probably tells you everything you need to know. I think we're happy with Norm right now. This one's been really, Riley has been really, knock on wood, like easy so far. We're also older. Like, I think there's just a reality to that. There's all sorts of things that can show up. There's like, look, like there are increasing risks for both of us, right, on stuff. And I think we're like really feel really fortunate to have like just have a healthy, happy baby. And I think we're like adjusting to new routines, and everyone's adjusting really well and super happy. And I'm like, I like this. But I grew up with a brother. Right. And so I'm always like, what's it going to be like for if it's just her? Right. Because I was always with my brother doing stuff. I don't know.
Has your stress gone up or down?
Probably up.
Is that stress of what? Yeah. Why?
Responsibility for somebody else in the world. Meaning like we'll be fine, but I just think like I really like I want everything to work out. And so I think, you know, when it's you and a partner, right, another adult, like you're like, everyone, you know, like, I just think you got this little human that's just dependent on you for a lot of things, you know, and you want to set a good example. I think there's a little bit more. I'm not dramatically more stressed. I just think like, there's a little bit more stress around.
I can't
not
remember.
Unhealthy stress.
Yeah. I can't remember what interview I was listening to. Man, who was it? Somebody was talking about how they were like, they regretted how hard they worked. And the way that they framed it with their family was they just didn't need to do the extra hour. Like, I think I can't remember who it was, but he was like, I always used to push the extra hour. And in hindsight, I just wish I took that hour because it didn't actually matter at work. And it definitely mattered at home. And, you've probably been the guy that's always taken the extra hour. And that extra hour has probably been easier to take when there like isn't a kid.
It shows up though. Like I'll put Riley down. I think it's just a balance. Like I'm a night owl, which is a problem for like, we talked about like the gym time. It's like, well, I'll put Riley down. She'll go to bed at 7:30. She'll probably sleep until 9:30, 10. We'll do a feeding then. Is like, I will take those evening feeds, but like when she's asleep, like I'm back doing work. So I think like you find the extra hour that's there that can be used in different ways, right, on those pieces. But I think it's hard right now. Like, again, I'll get judged for this. She's a newborn. And so fortunately there's a little bit more predictability or maybe less predictability around like the sleeping routines, but just like being there. It's just not toddler yet. She's not 4. You're not taking her to games where I think there are probably some different experiences. And so right now I feel like it's a little bit easier to find the extra hour if that's what I need to prioritize and do. But I think that becomes increasingly more difficult as she gets older.
Can I go back to the training thing that I asked you about before of like, do you not dread the training? And like, the reason I asked the question was because I did the escape. I think I told you the escape from Alcatraz.
Yeah, nice. Congrats. How was it?
Well, this is like the actual race was fine. Like, not like, in fact, I thought way easier than a marathon. Way easier because there's no stress of like, is my body going to make it? Because it's like swimming and biking is pretty low impact. You're like banging on your knees for 26, 50, 100 miles. Like, then you're like, am I going to make it physically?
I think like, interject for was it full Ironman, like 50-mile trail run was way harder than full Ironman. And it's because you get to break things up mentally and physically.
100%. And so anyway, the hard part was, like, I'm not a swimmer. I'm not a swimmer. I would
never have guessed.
I hate swimming. I hate swimming. And, I live in Russian Hill. I can walk down to the water. And I like got a wetsuit. And Dan, this walk, it's like a 10-minute walk from my place.
I know.
To the water.
Exactly where you're going.
The whole time I'm like, what am I? I love working out because it's truly like a real release for me. It's like I need it, right? And in this moment, in these for these swims, I could not have wanted to do anything less. And the day of was completely fine. It was great. I didn't even train that much because I hated it so much. But the thought of having to do something that I did not want to do because I genuinely enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, like, it gave me energy. And this took so much energy. That was the most miserable part.
Would you do another one?
I would do this one again.
Yeah.
And I would not train. I would not train.
They're tough races not to train for.
I would not, not train meaning like I wouldn't swim. I wouldn't swim again. And by the way, I didn't realize like every 4 years the current is against you. And so
Box of chocolates out there.
and so in this case, the current was with me. And so I was like, cruising. It was easy.
Yeah.
But apparently if the current's against you, like half the field doesn't finish. I'm definitely in the half the field that's not finishing.
I think you gotta like the grind. Like, I think the training for any of this stuff is harder than the race.
What do you think about like when you do a 10-mile swim? 10-mile swim.
Yeah, we did bridge to bridge. So it's Golden Gate to Bay Bridge. So maybe 8 and a half.
That's so far. Like this was
with current. So you're probably swimming 4.5, 5. You're swimming downhill.
But how long does it take?
It took us just under 2 hours.
Are you listening to music?
No. Music. None of the races are allowed, but you're allowed to listen. No.
No. Okay.
No, you're just grinding out there. Mental. People ask me. It's so funny. People ask me all the time, like, what do you think about it? Like, Ironmans, you're out there from 11 and a half hours. 50 mile was 12 hours. Just trying to think of different things. I can't tell you what I think about during those races. You almost black out. Just meaning like your mind just wanders. It just wanders.
When you train, do you listen to music?
Yeah.
Do you listen to podcasts? Do you listen to music?
Podcast. Listen to your podcast.
Oh my God.
There's like a bunch of podcasts I listen to, and that's music. Music gets old after a while. And so I like the talking. Sometimes it's just silent. I think sometimes on things like you just get into it where I actually like all the time we're so connected listening to things. It's just to have a moment where you can just zone it, especially if you're out in nature and just get to kind of just zone out and not listen to anything. I actually think is really nice.
Now that you're not working out, are you like you are similar to me in that we both have a lot of energy. And part of why working out is good is because you can like expend the energy.
Yes.
It's like walking a dog. The dog needs to get walked. Otherwise the dog starts running around the house, like pissing everywhere all the time. Like, do you feel like you have a good outlet right now? Like,
well, I can still get to it's just not the type of, Brian Schreier and I were talking about this. He's like, if you can get like the 30 minutes, like now that you have this new being that you're taking care of, it's like your workouts go from like the hour to the 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. But for me, I'm like, 30 minutes doesn't
even count.
Feel like a workout. So I think those are the things. Like I still can get there and do things that I think like we start to make little home gym. Right. So you find the downtime. But that's something that's just there. And I know this will change. This is like moments in time. Where I got to shift, I got to figure out some shifting of other things. I don't know what that is, what that looks like, how it feels like, whatever. But no, I want to have a better routine going on.
Can you like does it count to like bike to the office or something?
Yeah, but it's short. We're in that bike is 2.5 miles.
Right.
Downhill from where we live.
Right.
Cheating.
Does your team like understand you? Like, does everybody understand that you're like,
it's so funny. Finish your, sorry.
No, I think you know what I was going to say.
We just did, so we have, as I said, we've got 3 new executives on part of our C-suite. We just did team building this past week. We had a consultant, a coach come in and work with us. Namely to get to know each other, for all of us to talk just about this, which is like, what are the values we have as individuals? Like, how do you show up, right? Who are you? What drives you? I think the team prior to that exercise, probably like 50-50, kind of really like knew what makes me tick and who I am. I laugh at some of the people that have like their instruction manual for like how to interact with Joubin, and sometimes people can think that stuff's kind of corny. I think that stuff is probably really helpful.
Probably.
I need something for me where I'm like, I'm the epitome of speed. Like if you don't reply to me, like I will just move on with my life and like solve this. And quietly judge you, like quietly judge you. So I think like those things can actually be really helpful.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think so. I think it's hard for people to spend time like, we've got to know each other, but to like sit down, actually understand the motivations of people is so important because I think you hear them then differently. Like what they're saying and the questions and like their intentions, you understand it and you don't necessarily take it as like a good or a bad thing or that person's really intense. And like, do you understand why they're intense? Like they want to solve the problem, what is the drive behind it?
One of the things that I usually tell folks that start working with me is like, hey, I'm going to hang up very quick on you. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I just hate the part of a phone call where we say goodbye to each other in this like weird formality.
Yeah.
And so I'm usually going to be the first to hang up because the conversation's over and I'm like already thinking about the next thing.
Yeah.
And I like, it's going to come off as rude. I do not mean it that way.
Yeah.
Like
it's not intention.
Sometimes I like literally might hang up on you.
Yeah.
I will probably text you and be like, I didn't actually mean to hang up on you this time. But it's like, because I want to go to like the next thing.
Yeah.
And there's all these like little things that you don't like, you don't know. People don't know that it's not like because I don't like you or something. I'm just like weird.
But if you don't say that,
right,
somebody is going to come and manifest some belief around Joubin, right?
Or like when I'm talking, actually not so much in the pod, but generally speaking, when I'm talking to somebody, I don't actually make the same amount of eye contact that I normally do that other people would expect you to. And the reason for that is because I find it easier to think if I'm not like staring at somebody. And then a lot of people are like, well, he's rude. He's not listening.
Oh, right. I've never thought that.
You've never thought that? Good. Well, I get it all the time. And so, people just don't know.
Yeah.
People just don't know.
Now we'll just stare into my chest.
I was excited to do this because the pod has had a lot of, I don't know, like crazy, since I last had you on, like it's just kind of taken a life of its own.
Yeah.
And in some ways, like that's cool. Because like I get to sit down with like my business heroes every week. But in other ways, like part of me, why I was excited to have you back on was because I missed just chopping it up. Like just the humanity of knowing somebody that knows me, that I can just talk to and that I know is going through a bunch of real life stuff and will actually share it. And so I was just excited to do this with you.
Well, I appreciate it. This has been a ton of fun.
Yeah.
One, it's been crazy watching this for you, just as your friend to see where, you get to meet with just some incredible people.
Yeah.
But I can also see that like a lot of times, like people are probably pretty guarded. I listened a lot to the podcast, like, because you have just exceptional guests, but I think it's been this crazy, wild and awesome. And then, as I said, there's probably those moments. It's probably, I'll bring this back to like rock bands where I'm like, they probably miss those really small, intimate club shows from time to time because it gets you back to the people on that stuff.
Yeah. It's like company building. You always think you want to be at the 1,000-person company. And then you end up being like, remember when it was 5 of us in an office?
People chase that you chase that feeling, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know. Anyway, I was just excited to do it. It is cool to do all the like fancy big time whatevers. But it's also nice to just be able to talk. So I appreciate it, man.
I love it. Thank you.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
Are you hiring?
We are. We're hiring across the board. Engineers, go-to-market folks, marketing, you name it.
And for those listening, the first time that Dan and I recorded an episode, I went back and I searched your name in my texts, and the amount of texts that were like, I was crying, like that were like genuinely so moved by you and your authenticity is crazy. So I would encourage folks to listen to that. When you hear the word grit, what do you think of?
Perseverance. Probably almost the same thing I said last time I was here, but perseverance, sense of optimism, put one foot in front of the next one and like manifest destiny, like make it work.
I appreciate you, man. That's it for now. If you like the episode, please leave us a review or go back into the archives where we've done more than 200 episodes with some fantastic folks. This podcast is a Kleiner Perkins production, and I'm Joubin. Thanks for listening.